we used to say that Szeged is a livable city. Livable because of its size. It's a mid-sized city, 170,000 inhabitants, and livable because it is a walking city, very compact, no big suburbs, so everybody can find walking routes to his job or something like that. So, and we are very proud that we have a big park in the city center and so on. So I think that it is a very livable city, and we like this town. We have finished the SUMP, and last week it was approved by the City Council. We had transport plans in the past, roughly every 10 years, and the SUMP in a way was kind of an administrative task, since in Hungary, if you want to apply for some funds, it is a requirement on behalf of the government that you have an SUMP. So we had a past in research of our mobility, we had surveys in the past, we had transport plans, but it was a new task. It is a different methodology than what we used in the past. It is basically for the city. It includes elements of surveys of the neighboring agglomeration. So in fact it is a kind of a SUMP for the urban area, not just for the city of Szeged. Obviously the detailed part is about the city, but it is a very strong part about the agglomeration where we have most of the traffic. We do have measures in the SUMP, and we have put them into two categories because they are very different. We have developments, like infrastructure developments, that cost a lot of money and has an impact in the decade or maybe in decades. And we have measures that are soft measures, like reorganization, campaigns and things like that. And we thought that it is necessary to differentiate because the costs are very different and the impacts are very different. And this was the basic. In Hungary, if you want to apply for some funds, EU funds or government funds, you have to have a SUMP. And eventually, in a few years' time, we wanted to make the SUMP. As I mentioned, we usually had a transport plan in every 10 years or so, but it made the process faster. So it was kind of an incentive for us that we have to comply with this rule, and we didn't want to exclude ourselves from this possible application. I, as a politician, took part in some of the meetings of the SUMP project. There were meetings specifically for the stakeholders within the mayor's office, the city hall, and with the city companies and administrative parts that belong to the city. That there was a working group for them to have their say in the SUMP. And during the process, the consulting engineering company came to us to show us the interim results, and I took part in some of those meetings. So I was not just a final approval person, but I took part in the process at a certain level, obviously not at all the meetings, but I had a view how this whole process is going forward. The media was included, and we tried to, say, advertise our efforts through the media. So in the beginning we had surveys, we had proper household surveys the year before we started the SUMP. We had passenger counts before the year before, and when we started the official process of the SUMP, we also had an online survey, and it was very important that we tell the people that you have a way to get involved, and all the materials got onto the website of the local government. So we got a few hundred remarks regarding certain paragraphs of the SUMP, regarding the whole strategy. So there are all kind of remarks, and to get these remarks, to get this involvement, it was very important that we let the press know that it is an ongoing process, and please let let your readers know it, let your customers know it, that we are working on it. On the other hand, it was not a surprise for the press, because we have several planning processes, usually parallel, and we also tell the press that we are doing a plan for this part of the city, we are doing a plan for that part of the city, please let the people know it. So it's not unusual in Szeged that we try to consult the people through the press, for example. They were supportive. There was even a case when we had a specific measure and we mentioned it to the press, and they held an online survey. So the local paper said that, okay, it's an interesting question, how to weigh the traffic if you restructure one important crossing, and they put the question on the internet, and it was very interesting to see the results. In fact, the results were the same what we expected, but I was very nervous when they started this survey because we didn't know what the results would be. So we got a few hundred remarks during this process, and all remarks were individually examined, how relevant they are. Most of them was some kind of a correction or rephrasing some sentence in the document. Some of them was significant and could be included, and there were a few that were saying that there is some strategic misconception that had to be answered but could not be included in the final document. So it was a kind of a refusal of the remark in the end, but it has to be explained that why it was refused. So we got plenty of remarks like that. There were people who were interested, and there were people who were interested because they had some professional relationship to the material. Like, we have consulted all the authorities in Szeged. We consulted, as I mentioned, departments in the city companies, big companies in the city that are not belonging to us. But it was not a very popular process in the sense that we didn't have, I don't know, hundreds of people getting involved. Hundreds, I mean almost 1,000 people were involved in the beginning when we had this survey, online survey, but later when the formal procedure was ongoing and when we had already published some materials, only a fraction of those people got involved again and had new ideas relating to the text. So in a way, in the beginning it was there was more interest in the process at the general level, and it gave us some kind of a guidance, because people said that they want to live in a livable city, as I mentioned, so it was important for them. They want to maintain the great green areas in the city and not to give it up to cars, for example. but when we put these ideas into a form, then we didn't get so much feedback from so many people. But the few people who gave us feedback, they were very involved. So there were people who gave us 20, 30 topical remarks that was very valuable for us. I think the main challenge was, in a way, to get through this process in a timely way, because these consultative processes can drag on for a very long time, because you have new remarks, you create a new text, and then again you have consultation, so it can drag on for a very long time. And our intention was that we should finish it this year. This was the previously agreed deadline. On the other hand, given that it was approved by the City Council without much debate, I think that there will be elements that will be debated later. So when we will implement something that is, say, restrictive to cars, it's in the document that we want to do this, but nobody complained about it. But when we get to the implementation phase, there is going to be some backlash. I think that in a way the City Council itself hasn't debated enough about this issue, and later it may cause problems during the implementation. I think the SUMP can give you a framework for the next decade if you want to work on sustainable mobility in your city. After consultation with the people, you may have plans that can be accomplished, and it is going to be tough even having a SUMP to implement the measures, but still it gives you the big picture where your city is going in the questions of mobility, and it gives a picture to the people in your city that we are going to go on this way. Have your SUMP as soon as possible. So I think the message is for the city is that have your SUMP as soon as possible, because you will be able to implement your measures in a context if you have your SUMP. Otherwise, you will have your measures maybe contradicting each other. You will not have a big picture. If you have a vision for your city, your citizens will understand what you're doing, and your measures will fit each other.